Welcome back, guys. This is Gaming with Alston, and today we're on episode 78 or 79. What in the fuck is this episode? There is no point in telling an overweight person to exercise. Just let them do it on their own. Don't need that. Don't need that. Don't need that bedrock anymore. Nor do I need that pressure plate. Sometimes the biological changes that causes you to stay obese might actually start before you're even born. Because for some people, they had a constant urge. Some of those people that are overweight had a constant urge to eat even before they were born. Like, some of them were already heavy since birth. Us humans, we're not alone when it goes to our bodies trying to keep us from losing weight. That trait is actually found in every mammal. From the largest elephant to the smallest bat. There's a reason for this. And the gene that controls those biological triggers those biological functions to cause you to gain back that weight you've just lost. Like, you kind of need that gene to live. You kind of need that gene in order to live. In fact, you probably need that gene in order to survive. Without that gene, those who don't carry that gene are actually at a greater risk of developing osteoporosis, even in the presence of food. What we need to do to help reduce the obesity epidemic is reduce air pollution. Because, the stuff that's released into the air from factories, and possibly even our cars, can actually trigger the biological functions that will cause us to gain a shit ton of weight. Like, whether it be increasing our appetite, slowing our metabolism down, or both. If you want to be able to lose weight, like, even if you are never obese, air pollution can change your biology to that of an obese person. The effects that air pollution has on your waistline might actually be transgenerational, meaning the effects might actually be triggered in an unborn child before they're even born. The methods of weight loss used in The Biggest Loser are not healthy. They're actually very unhealthy. Some of the people who never weighed down to like 15 stone will ultimately get there regardless of what the parent does. Even trying to get your child to grow into that weight will make... would be kind of hard. Because it's not just humans who are biologically programmed to try to be at their heaviest. That trait is actually found in a lot of mammals. Yet if I go back to 260 pounds, I'm going to do it in pure muscle. And a bit of subcutaneous fat. The gene that triggers biological functions that'll cause you to gain back all the weight you lose, you actually kind of need that gene in order to survive. You kind of need that gene in order to survive. Even without the marketing candy to children, children are still going to eat a shit ton of sugar. In fact, most of the sugar that was consumed in the Middle Ages most of the sugar was actually in the Middle Ages was actually consumed by children, because it's a biological thing. Plus, our bodies need sugar anyway. A growing body needs more sugar per pound of body weight compared to an adult, which means their bodies naturally prefer energy-dense foods. Why it's so hard to make a New Year's resolution to lose weight? There's a biological reason for that. You need that fat in order to stay warm in the winter. And since there's limited sunlight in the winter compared to the summer, your skin's not going to produce as much vitamin D. Which means that you need that subcutaneous fat so you could absorb what little vitamin D your skin is producing. So you could absorb what little vitamin D your skin is producing. Because, if you remove all the subcutaneous fat from your body's gonna end up having trouble with a lot of things. Yes, including vitamin D absorption. Not only you'll be hungry all the time, but your bones would be extremely weak, which would then trigger a chain reaction, which will weaken your muscles too. If you want to build strong muscles, you need strong bones. And vice versa. No, you need strong bones first. Like those strong men. That probably explains why they're extremely fat. Like Brian Shaw and Eddie Hall. Fat jokes between Eddie Hall and Brian Shaw are actually pretty funny. Because they're pretty big. Air pollution might actually alter our biological functions to make it to where your biological functions will tell you to gain as much weight as possible. Like, try to get to like 300 or even 400 pounds, no matter how much you eat, which means your metabolism is going to slow down. have hypothyroidism, it gets a lot harder for you to control your weight. It gets even harder. Because your thyroid hormones kind of regulate your... And it's not just in humans in which their biological functions will tell them to stay at their heaviest. It's not just in humans. It's in a lot of animals, too. Especially mammals. It's in every mammal. From the largest of the elephants to the smallest hummingbird bat. Every animal that has a calcium, phosphorus, and magnesium or magnesium-based skeleton needs to store some fat. They need to store some fat beneath their skin. Because if they can't store the fat, their bones become brittle. Even the diet are very distant ancestors. Oops. There's no point in telling an already overweight person to eat healthy. There's really no point in that. Because, you know, our desire for sweets might actually be genetic. Which is probably why junk food tastes so good. Plus, your body kind of needs that. Our desire to be lazy is more than just having machines do all the work for us. It's finding ways to reduce... It's also about finding ways to reduce the energetic cost of digesting food. And increasing bioavailability of nutrients. Like, for hundreds of thousands of years, humanity has been trying to reduce their caloric expenditure. They've been trying to reduce their caloric expenditure as much as possible. Let me tell you, there's only so much you can do to reduce your caloric expenditure. Because if you stop expending calories completely, you'd be dead. Because your body has to burn some calories to keep you alive. Sometimes your constant urge to eat would actually... For some people, their constant urge to eat might actually start before they're even born. For some people, it could actually start before they're even born. For some people. For some people who are never obese, they have to deal with a biological struggle in which their biological functions are telling them to pack on weight even though they're already at a normal weight. One factor behind why your biological functions will tell you to gain weight is if your bones are really brittle. If your bones are already really brittle, your body would tell you to start packing on muscle. Your body would actually start telling you to pack on fat. If your bones are brittle. That's because when your fat percentage gets too low, because think about it, vitamin D is fat soluble, not water soluble. It is fat soluble, which means that if you deplete your fat reserves completely, you're going to end up with bone problems sooner or later. Why we evolved to store fat? Every mammal has, mammals do have more fat than their their cold-blooded relatives. The biological function that causes people to gain back all the weight they lost is controlled by a gene that is in every mammal. If you don't have that gene, you're gonna die. Some animals that are not as well suited to compete for resources, some of them actually end up dying before they're even born. There's no point in telling an overweight person to lose weight, because they're simply going to gain it back, regardless. One of the things that could cause you to gain back all the weight you lost is that suddenly your bones become really brittle. All of a sudden. Coordinate 69. Z coordinate 65. One sign that you need to go back to your heaviest One of the signs that you need to learn, that you need to go back to your heaviest, is if your bones are suddenly really brittle. Like after losing all that weight, and then you keep it off, then suddenly your bones become brittle. That's actually a biological sign that you need to gain back the weight. Go back to your heaviest. Even if you don't feel the hunger pangs. Even if you don't feel hunger pangs, there are other problems you might face. And one of those problems that you need to know about, which you definitely need to gain back all the weight you lost, is your bones suddenly become brittle after years of maintaining a healthy weight. After losing all that weight. That is because vitamin D is fat soluble, not water soluble. Even if you try to keep the pounds off for the rest of your life, sometimes keeping the pounds off is actually really dangerous. Trying to keep the pounds off for the rest of your life can potentially be pretty dangerous. Why? Why is it that your body's trying to tell you to go to your heaviest? One explanation is that One potential explanation is that for some people, if they go down to what most of us would call a normal weight, one problem they could face as a result of it is their bones could become pretty brittle. That is actually a warning sign in which your body's crying out for you to gain back all the weight you lost. And probably gain even more weight than... Some of the heavy children out there, like who are extremely overweight, sometimes they would go out and steal food from stores. If your bones suddenly start to become brittle after losing weight, that means you definitely need to stop losing weight, and in fact, you need to start gaining back the weight you've just lost. That is because if your bones are brittle, you shouldn't lose weight. In fact, if your bones are extremely brittle, even at a normal weight, after years of maintaining weight loss, yet you're consuming enough vitamin D, that means you definitely need to gain back the weight you just lost. You definitely need to gain back all the weight you just lost. That is because vitamin D is fat soluble, not water soluble. And if you don't gain back the weight you just lost, one possible consequence of keeping off the pounds for too long, I know this could happen to you. One possible consequence is your bones can actually become really brittle. And your workouts might actually end up sucking pretty bad. Your workouts could suck. That's what could happen if you lose too much fat and get extremely lean. Not only you're going to be hungry all the time, but also your bones are going to become brittle. To where even the lightest exercise can cause a pretty bad fracture. I know, there are some bodybuilders out there and other athletes who are pressured to get as lean as possible. I know there are some athletes out there who are pressured to get extremely lean that actually have osteoporosis as a result of their low fat percentage. Some people who end up losing weight end up having to gain it back under doctor's orders because some of them actually end up developing osteoporosis. There's a factor brought on by losing too much fat. Because when you get down to insanely low fat percentage levels, your bones can actually become really brittle. Air pollution might actually be causing people who've been normal weight almost their entire lives to suddenly become overweight. Because scientists over in China discovered some extremely overweight rats. They compared it to the normal weight rats in the suburban areas, and they discovered that they've been living in industrial areas for too long. Like, so long that it's affecting their metabolism in an irreversible manner. Which probably explains why Michelle's tactics on fighting obesity just doesn't work. Doesn't work. Her tactics didn't work. Despite her efforts, obesity rates continue to rise. Despite the fact we've been eating the same junk food for 50 plus years now, and using the same plastic for our containers for 50 plus years now, and our metal cans for our foods for 50 plus years. Now we know why. Air pollution might actually have a bigger role. and the epidemic than you think. Because it's probably making our dogs overweight too. It's probably making our dogs overweight too. And probably even our farm animals. There's an episode of South Park in which someone made a dookie in the urinal. Just like those drunk college kids. The healthiest people with hypothyroidism are actually when they're at their heaviest. That is because your body fat actually prevents you from going into a catabolic state. Anyways, this is Gaming with Alston signing off. Stay tuned for more content like this. I encourage you to subscribe to my YouTube channel and follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for more content like this. And I encourage you to support me on Patreon for more content to help my content grow more popular. As always, this is Gaming with Alston signing off. Stay tuned for more, and tschüss.